Hey YouTube, Crypto Jack here again. Guys, today we're going to talk about kind of a tough one. I get this question a lot. Jack, I'm on the wrong side of a trade. What do I do? Jack, I've lost 3/4 of my portfolio. I want to make it back. What do I do? Jack, help me. I tried to rely on news. I tried to rely on my favorite on-chain analyst. Kind of steered me the wrong way. They said things were bullish, things were actually bearish. What do I do? How do I make sense of this stuff? So these are the questions we're going to go over, and hopefully you find some little bit of useful information. Honest answer is it's tough. It's really, really tough. It's hard to do, but we'll go through some tips and tricks and things that have worked well for me and that I've helped other people to use, and it has worked well for them. But at the end of the day, there's no guarantees, there's no promises. As always, none of this is truly financial advice, and I urge you to come up with your own plans independent of me. But this is just we'll share some observations and things that I've done that have been useful. Looking at Bitcoin back in 2017 into 2018 into 2019. This is from October to the next October. This is almost 2 full years of trading activity. Big excitement, lots of bulls ready for the moon. We're going to $1 million. I mean, I heard it all back in. And then what happened? We bounce. Besides being a descending triangle, this type of bouncing was what's known as the bouncing ball. And the concept is that as price, if you dropped a rubber ball from about head high, it would bounce and then bounce and bounce, and gravity would eventually pull it down. And that's essentially what's happening here, is that there's just not enough buyers to sustain and defy gravity and go to the moon, so to speak. So what you do is you have less and less and less and less and less and less buyers until ultimately supply overwhelms demand, and we go to what in hindsight was our ultimate low for the bear market. Well, now we didn't know that at the time. So this conversation picks up, Jack, I'm scared, I'm underwater, my alts are bleeding, that kind of stuff. Let's imagine that you are a buyer in here. Let's say you were a buyer in here. Let's say you're a buyer in here. You're a buyer at any of these places. And suddenly you find price down in here. Now, there's a number of things that I want to point out. Number one is that if you were a buyer in these places, you probably were not very technically astute. These bounces were almost every single one of them. If we go from the highs to the lows, from that high. So the actual trend. So from this high down to this low, almost each of these downtrends bounced to the 618. We'll go over this more in another video. To the 618, from that high to that low, to the 618. And whenever you see that, your spidey sense better be firing off and saying, this is not looking good. I need to get out of the way of this. But let's just say you didn't know anything about it, all that kind of stuff, and you are looking for what you can do better. Well, the first thing you need to do is decide, am I going to cut this position, or am I going to ride it into the next cycle? Now, in hindsight here, we know that Bitcoin operates within these cycles, and I've already covered a video on this, on why my belief is that Bitcoin is each of the Bitcoin bull runs, and then by default the altcoin bull runs, all have to do with the halving. If you can front run a halving and then wait till about a year after the halving, you can do really well, right? So if you find yourself, just like right now, if suddenly you find yourself here and the next halving isn't till here, historically this is a tough time to be. So you have to decide, am I going to cut this position and take a chance of crazy things happening, or do I want to add to it? You don't just have to panic sell and then rebuy. There is another option where you can average in and build that bag up more and more, and to where the point by the time you cash out and say 2025 or whatever, whenever that the magic number to get out is, maybe your average entry, let's say you bought when Bitcoin was here, and now you're kind of scared because we're down here. Well, maybe if you had twice as many entries down in here, if let's say, for example, we come down into the high 20s, and whatever that means for your altcoin, right? Maybe that means Doge is down to 5 cents or whatever it is. Like, if you already have a plan where you're like, you know what, if things fall, I'm just going to double up. And then now the average cost of my entire bag, of whatever my bag is, now it's really heavily weighted from this activity down here. And I actually don't mind that, because I think over the next couple years, it's going to go up. Now, that's one way of thinking. That's perfectly fine. But if you're a trader, if you're like, hey man, look, I actually need to cut my position right now and try to figure out what I'm going to do next, here's what I would say to you. You need to treat this trade. This is kind of how we were looking at things right when I first started this conversation. If you were in a margin trade from here, you probably can't withstand a drop down to here. So if you are entered here and you find yourself looking at price action kind of in here, there comes a time when you just got to take the L. You just got to take the L. If you think that you can big brain a bounce and then get out on a bounce, then do that. That's fine. But the punchline is, and this goes back to the video where I talked about having pocket aces. There comes a time, even with pocket aces, even with the best trade setup, you just got to cut the position. You got to take the L and you got to move on. And that's okay because you've protected your bag. You did not leave your bag exposed to more volatility. And that's important. Mentally, it's an important place to get to identify that this was a trade, the trade failed, and I will wait for a better setup. Okay, guys, I think that'll do it for this video. And then follow-up video, the part 2, we'll talk about revenge trades, maybe some better setups, a couple of things like that. So we hope you enjoy that one as well. As always, come join us twice a week for our live streams at twitch.tv/cryptojack. And until then, we'll see you next time.